Carowinds has announced its brand new attraction coming in 2027. Rip Roarin Falls will be a record-breaking water ride located in between the Palladium and Fury 325. Let's see what's in the woods as we dive headfirst into this exciting addition. Do you guys like that generic YouTuber opening? No? Okay, good, because I'm never doing that again. Finally, after years of a actual drought in this park, they finally say, you know what? Let's give these boys a water ride. I don't know about y'all, but my neurons are definitely activated right now. Anyways, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into it, see what it's about, and I'll give my thoughts on it. So the backstory behind the ride is you're exploring a logging camp built by the Hulse Brothers Logging Company in the 1800s. Not long after experimenting with a brand new multi-level buzzsaw, what the fuck does that even mean? The camp was abandoned and sat dormant for many years. Recently there has been strange happenings at the camp, and locals believe it's the ghosts of lumberjacks haunting the deserted site. However, while riding, you realize that raccoons have taken over the property and are running amok with the old log flume. Me personally, I love that Carowinds is continuing to invest in story-driven attractions. From looking at the renderings, it seems like there's going to be a bunch of theming throughout the ride. There's animatronics, there's show scenes, there's themed buildings, figurines, amazing landscaping, water. Obviously these are just renderings and things could change, but I really do hope that it's present when the ride opens. I do hope they put some theming in the queue line though. That would be cool, I think. Now let's talk about the ride itself. The ride model is a super flume, manufactured by Whitewater West. The ride will feature their enhanced super flume boats, which include upgrades from their original design. These include better corrosion management, solid aluminum wheel carriers, and components that are easier to swap and replace. With over 2,200 feet of flume and track, the ride will be an astonishing 6.5 minutes long. God damn, that's long! The layout starts with a winding flume leading to the first lift hill. At the top, you'll encounter the first of 2 high-speed reversing switches. After a quick show scene, you'll plunge backwards into the world's tallest reverse drop on a water ride. And did I mention it's a double down? I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty fucking cool. Congo Falls is literally shaking in its boots right now. After splashing down, you'll go through more flume before switching back to the forward direction. Then you'll wind your way around to the bottom of the final lift hill. At the top, a show scene plays with the raccoons as the turntable aligns with what will be the world's tallest water ride drop. You're then sent lurching forward, dropping down 100 feet and finishing with a 50-mile-per-hour splashdown. Not gonna lie, this layout is gonna be amazing during the Carolina summers. It gets super hot and dry outside, like Sandy's Dome. I need it! And it seems like nobody on the ride is safe from getting wet. The height requirement for the ride will be 35 inches tall if accompanied by a supervising companion, and 41 inches tall to ride alone. Not only will this be a great ride for enthusiasts, but it'll also be a great ride for families as well. Now for the operation nerds out there, El Toro Ryan, I'm talking to you. Here's some interesting things I've picked up on while trying to do research for this video. The storage for the boats will be located behind the shed of the second high-speed reverse switch. This means if a boat has to be taken out of service, it needs to be sent through the first half of the course before it reaches the storage. It's also safe to assume that Whitewater will use the same system they use on their other super flumes, which is an overhead crane to take boats out of the trough/track. If that's the case, it'll be very difficult to take boats out of service or put boats into service, as it will most likely require the ride to go down to perform the transferring operation. Some other flume rides like Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Magic Kingdom has a storage trough that runs parallel to the station, so if a boat needs to be taken out of service or added onto the circuit, they are able to do so without shutting the ride down. Another interesting operation aspect of this attraction is that it will more likely than not have a constantly moving station. This means that boats don't stop in the station and move at a slow pace while guests board into them. This will help tremendously with capacity as the ride will dispatch itself in a consistent interval, keeping the ride and line moving consistently. Something else that will help with consistency is having a fully offline ADA station. From the research that I've done, it seems like there will be a lateral transfer track located within the station. That way, when a group with ADA accommodations comes up to board, they can transfer a boat off into the ADA station, allow the group to take the time they need to board safely, check their restraints, and then transfer the boat back onto the main circuit. At Boo Blasters on Boo Hill, another ride at Carowinds, if an ADA group comes up to board, they have to stop station movement in order to safely board those guests. So having this fully offline ADA station at Rip Roarin Falls is a win for both normal guests and guests that require ADA accommodations. Now it's time to talk about everybody's favorite subject, block zones. Now, old-fashioned log flumes do not have block zones. The flow of logs are usually controlled either in the station or at the top of drops. However, due to the complexity of this ride, it will more likely than not need block zones. Here is a diagram of all the possible block zones this ride could have. We first start with the station block. We then go to lift feeder 1, which starts at the end of the station and to the base of A lift. Then we go to A lift, which encompasses the whole chain lift. Then we go to switch feeder 1, which are the tire drives right before switch 1. Switch 1 is the first high-speed reverse switch. Switch feeder 2 starts at the crest of the backwards drop and runs all the way to the top of the belt lift. Switch 2 is the second reverser switch that puts you in the forward direction. Lift feeder 2 is the mini drop back into the trough and runs all the way to the base of B lift. B lift runs from the bottom to the top of the second lift hill. Switch feeder 3 are the tire drives right before the turntable. Switch 3 is the turntable. And the runoff block, which is the final block, runs from the crest of the big drop all the way to the belt feeder that leads into the station. Now, although these are all possible control points for a boat, I do not think that all of these will be block zones when the ride is in a normal operating mode. And I have a few reasons why I think this. My first reason has to do with lift hills. A lot of water attractions require feeder belts at the bottom of lift hills to ensure that boats properly engage with the lifts. Naturally, this becomes a congestion point for boats if a normal interval is not kept. The feeder belts will naturally time boats up the lift hill to readjust that interval before gravity sections in the ride. Another reason is that it's preferable to not stop any boats on any lift hills. On a traditional log flume, lift hills run continuously and are not designed to be control points for boats. This could also be due to the potential dangers of restarting a boat's motion on a lift hill while it's still loaded. My next reason is due to cascades. For those of you who are unfamiliar, a cascade stop is when a ride vehicle is stopped at the end of a block zone and does not continue motion. This leads to the vehicles dispatched after to stop in the next available block, causing a cascade of stops throughout the course. This is the safety system that prevent blah blah blah, you get the reference I'm making. Now on more modern coasters, a cascade stop will not cause an error that shuts down the ride. If you just restart motion from the station, everything else will follow suit. However, on older rides like the Aero coasters at Cedar Point, or the older attractions at Disney, cascading will cause the whole ride to shut down and require evacuation of all guests before resetting the error and restarting motion. It's possible that Whitewater will program the ride to cascade if a boat stops motion on a lift hill. For example, if a boat were to completely stop on switch 1 and not move to the next block, the next boat would stop on switch feeder 1. This alone would not cause a cascade. However, if another boat were to be dispatched, this boat would stop on a lift, causing a cascade and causing the ride to be evacuated. Now, the way this could be prevented is if a lift is not even considered a block, and all boats would stop at lift feeder 1. Another thing to consider is on some rides made by Whitewater, 2 boats are allowed to be on one lift at the same time. This goes back to what I said earlier about traditional log flumes and how their lift hills are not considered a control point. This can be seen on Daredevil Falls, another super flume made by Whitewater. The difference though is that Daredevil Falls does not have any switches or turntables, so it functions more like a traditional log flume. This may not be the case with Rip Roarin Falls with the inclusion of its switches and turntables. With the addition of these switches, it is possible that Whitewater will program the ride to not let a boat move into the next block until the prior boat exits a switch or until a switch is fully reset to accept the next boat. With all of these factors considered, here is what I actually think the blocks will be during normal operation. We first start with the station block, and then we go to lift feeder 1, which is the end of the station and the base of A lift. The new A lift block would run from the base of A lift all the way to the end of the first switch. The new switch 2 block would run from the crest of the backwards drop all the way to the end of the second switch. The lift feeder 2 block would remain the same, starting at the crest of the mini drop and running all the way to the base of B lift. The new B lift block zone would start at the base of B lift and run all the way through to the end of switch 3. And the runoff block would remain the same, starting at the crest of the big drop and running all the way through to the belt feeder into the station. I believe this will most likely be the block zone setup during operation, as it maintains the lift feeders as a control point in case the dispatch interval changes, while ensuring that a boat does not enter a lift hill until the switch ahead is ready to accept the next boat. The only thing that I would change is adding back the switch feeder 3 block and the switch 3 block, and lift feeder 2 would be programmed to not release a boat until the switch feeder 3 block is clear. Reason being that B lift is long enough to accept 2 boats at the same time. This would help as a control point in case the turntable is unable to release a boat before a boat reaches the end of lift feeder 2. Assuming that the block zones are set up this way, we can figure out the approximate capacity. The longest interval out of all the blocks is switch 2, which takes approximately 57 seconds to clear. Using that as our minimum dispatch interval, you can get 63 dispatches per hour, which equals a theoretical capacity of 505 people per hour. Yeah, that's slightly worrying. Please take these numbers with a grain of salt, as this requires assuming a lot of things that we do not know for sure. But if this is the case, the lines for this ride are gonna be horrendous. With it being the only major water attraction at Carowinds, this will not be spitting out people the way a traditional water ride would. Again, these numbers are theoretical and not guaranteed, and I hope that's the case. With rising attendance numbers and the brutal summer heat that the Carolinas experience, this ride will need to be able to churn through a lot of people really fast. Now, one question people might ask, is this a good fit for Carowinds?
Yes, it is.
Now, obviously Carowinds had been lacking in the water ride department for a while. Even though River Raft Blast was a good ride just to check off the box, this is what Carowinds really needed. Yeah, sure, a second water ride is nice, but what Carowinds really needed was a transition ride. A ride for kids that are too grown to enjoy the small flat rides, but aren't tall enough or are too scared to ride the major coasters. As much as I love the old classics like Gold Rusher, Cyclone, and Hurler, Carowinds needed something new, cutting edge, and unique. And I think they knocked it out of the park, no pun intended. Although it's not clear in the renderings, I do hope that they expand this into a fully fledged area with dining and retail, but no matter what, I'll definitely be riding this when it opens next year. That'll be it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more content like this, let me know in the comments below. Y'all have a good day, and I'll see you around.